The case against two men accused of helping Thabo Bester escape from prison has now been postponed to next week. Senohe, Matsoara and Zolile Sekeleni appeared in court yesterday. They face multiple charges, including murder, aiding an escape, arson, defeating the ends of justice, and fraud. Bester and his partner, Dr. Nandipha Magudumana, were arrested in Tanzania on Friday. The details of his escape and staged death were brought to light in a series of explosive articles by news agency GroundUp. In fact, editor Nathan Geffen joins us via our video link this morning. Nathan, it's great to see you and to talk to you this morning. Where do we begin as we reflect on how far we've come since that focus by GroundUp? I suppose, what many of us will be thinking is, would we even be here were it not for that first photograph that emerged on social media and then GroundUp following up?
Morning, Michelle. Thanks very much for having us, for having me on this morning. So, since we ran our first story in November, after we ran that first story in November, we were pretty much ignored by the authorities. And then when we ran our subsequent story in January, we continued to be ignored. And then when we broke the story in March, on March the 15th, that pretty much made it clear that Thabo Bester had escaped. And then the next day published a photograph of him in Woolworths in Sandton City. Only then did the authorities start acting and acknowledging that he had escaped. And in that time, we've seen a manhunt being launched for him. He and his girlfriend being arrested, and two people now being charged for aiding in his escape and apparently with murder as well. And the fundamental question we should all be asking is, why did all of this only start happening after the 16th of March? Why didn't it happen in August last year, at least August last year? Some people argue strongly that it should have even happened in May last year, immediately after he escaped. But unequivocally, by August last year, the police had no further excuse to not act with haste in the Thabo Bester matter.
So you're saying by August of last year, police would have known that this convicted serial rapist and murderer had escaped from prison and that the body that was found in his prison cell wasn't his?
Put it this way, as of August last year, they should have been deeply suspicious that something was wrong, because that was when a police officer, apparently a police lawyer, filed an affidavit in a case in which Dr. Nandipha brought, in which she tried to take control of the body, take possession of the body that had been found in the cell, presumably with the intention of getting rid of it, of cremating it or something like that. And we can be thankful that there was one competent police officer who opposed that, who deposed an affidavit which essentially put an end to that. And if you read the court documents, you can see that there's the results of the post-mortem, which was conducted immediately after the person in the cell died or was burned in May, and that these affidavits were all deposed in August last year. So the police knew in August last year that something was extremely fishy, and and certainly they must have suspected that an escape was possible at that point, and they should have acted with haste at that point, and they should have brought the public into their confidence and said, there's a possibility that this man has escaped from prison.
Yeah. This is not just a matter of public interest, is it, Nathan? I mean, this is the safety of the public at large. A known serial rapist and murderer having escaped. Police, as you say, would have known something was amiss by August of last year. It took them, 6 months to act? It raises so many questions, but among them, just how many people would have been involved and how high up does that involvement go?
Well, that's precisely right. So it's a matter of public interest because this is a dangerous man, and because he'd escaped from prison, and because clearly he had assistance in escaping from prison. And we don't know who helped him escape from prison. So far, there are two suspects in court. I suppose all of us are a bit skeptical that it ends there, given the stories that the story that we broke about how he was running a business from prison, and how he'd been video conferenced into a meeting in Johannesburg from prison, dressed in a suit, that raises questions about the degree of incompetence and corruption that must have been going on at that G4S-run prison in Mangaung. Now, the good news is that today there's a parliamentary hearing, and the Department of Correctional Services, G4S, the police, they're all expected to be there, including the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Police. And I think they're going to get grilled quite hard by the members of Parliament.
Yeah. I mean, we obviously hope that we do get the answers that all of us are looking for. But it's once again put into sharp focus the police's ability, right? Not least because of the way it was handled when Thabo Bester was in custody, but also because this arrest in Tanzania also seems to have happened by chance, because that's not where police were looking.
Look, I mean, I don't know the details yet. I don't think any of us are completely on top of the details of what went down in Tanzania. But I mean, clearly the police have acted with gross incompetence since August last year, but not at the highest level. I think there have been definitely the police officer who filed that affidavit in the case. She deserves to be commended. She acted diligently. But beyond that, her bosses, they have difficult questions to answer.
Yeah. Nathan, what do you know about the identity, not the identity, but, you know, whether that body that was found in Thabo Bester's cell, whether it was part of the bodies that were claimed by Nandipha Magudumana at a mortuary in the Free State, or whether indeed someone was killed specifically for that escape plot?
So we were quite surprised yesterday. We covered the court case yesterday, and we were quite surprised that Nandipha's father and the prison warder were charged with murder, because we've been working on the theory that this was an unclaimed body from a morgue, and they'd managed to get hold of it and brought it in. Now it seems that they've been charged with the murder of whoever was brought in. We have absolutely no details on that, and I hope that the prosecuting authority has it right, and that this isn't just. I don't know. This came as quite a surprise to us. We didn't realize that the authorities had found evidence of murder being committed in order to get that body into the cell.
Yeah. Yeah, as you say, there are so many details. It is at times difficult to keep up, right? So now it's around...
And a lot of rumor as well, and a lot of stuff that is being said without sufficient evidence to back it up. And it might all be true. Well, it can't all be true because some of it's contradictory. A lot of the stuff that's being said that isn't backed up by evidence might turn out to be true. But our position throughout all of this is that we don't publish anything unless we're convinced that there's compelling evidence to support it.
So now it's about getting them back to South Africa, right? And
absolutely.
What kind of worms might that open?
Well, indeed. I mean, I imagine they're going to be interrogated and hopefully... they will spill the beans as to who assisted them. And I imagine it's probably in their interest to get back to South Africa as well. Although I'm sure there's nothing pleasant about being in prison in South Africa, I imagine it's probably even less so in Tanzania.
Can you give us a sense of what's next for your investigations at GroundUp?
So, you know, there are two sides to the story. The one is obviously the story of Thabo Bester and his girlfriend, and they've obviously captured the public imagination. These two fiends who've managed to vickle the system, for want of a better way of putting it. But our primary interest is less in them and more in what went wrong systematically. Why was that G4S prison so badly run? What was the role of the authorities here? And we actually are looking into a story in that regard. I can't give you details yet because we haven't nailed it down properly. But I'm hoping that we can publish at some point on that.
And we hope to talk to you once you do. Nathan, Geffen, let me thank you for your time this morning. the editor at GroundUp, really the news agency that in many ways can be credited for police finally acting on the information that emerged insofar as Thabo Bester's audacious escape is concerned. Nathan, thanks very much indeed for joining us. And of course, so many questions still swirling around this story. For one, according to what Nathan just told us, August of last year is when police would have known that something was amiss insofar as that fire in Thabo Bester's cell is concerned. Why it took police months and months to act is one of the big questions that we'll certainly be asking.